it's my pleasure to introduce an icon, an advocate, one of my very favorite artists and, quite frankly, humans, and my dear friend, the one and only Michael Stipe. Hello, Michael.
Wow, what an introduction, Rania. Thank you. Hi.
What do you say about the man who needs no introduction, though? So,
Thank you.
Thanks so much for spending some time with us today. So let's get right to it. But first, I want to make sure I point out, so there's no confusion and I don't get Michael and I in trouble, that neither of us are scientists or medical doctors or epidemiologists. We're two friends talking about our experiences over the last year. And some of you might remember Michael actually joined us almost exactly a year ago, Earth Week last year. So here we are again, almost exactly a year later. A lot has changed. We've all kind of collectively been through things and individually been through things. We've changed. So what lessons have you learned over these past 12, 13 months that you see staying with you?
Personally, whoa. I mean, that's a 4-hour conversation.
It is.
But I mean, we have collectively experienced something that in our lifetimes has never happened and hopefully will never happen again. My grandparents were old enough to have been there for the Spanish flu epidemic of 1919, I think it was. And a few of them remembered that. But this is the first time in my life that I have not for a year experienced a feeling of FOMO, because there's nowhere to be. There's no fear of missing out. There's no party there's no place that I want to be that feels safer than where I am. And I think we've all had to learn a lot about ourselves, some of it good, some of it maybe not so good. And hopefully we grow from that and we're able to take these lessons and kind of move forward in a good way.
Absolutely. So we're seeing numbers and studies that show people listen most to their personal doctors when it comes to things like getting the vaccine. But they also take cues from public figures, which is part of why we've been seeing so many celebrities and influencers and politicians, even former presidents, publicly talking about their vaccine experience, and some even getting it publicly. And of course, people should consult their doctors when they're figuring out which vaccine is best for them and their loved ones. But I'd really just like to take some time to talk to you about your experience, what the process was like. Did you have side effects? What are you most looking forward to doing again as more and more people get vaccinated?
Well, what's so bizarre is that we all, I think, became kind of junior epidemiologists over the past year. I mean, junior expert epidemiologists, like we all think that we know exactly what's going on. And the truth is we're in this really bizarre era where truth and fact is not actually acknowledged universally as truth or fact. And we have a lot of that to blame on really absurd leadership. For instance, the administration that we just finally got out of the White House, and yet the side effects of
It's 1930.
Oh, it's exactly 1930. There's my computer. I told you that was going to happen. The side effect of that is going to be with us for a long time, sadly. But we also have digital technology and social media, which can create intentionally or unintentionally these alternate realities or alternate sets of quote unquote facts. There's no debate about this. And we have media then talking about and referencing and reporting on people like in the US, for example, a certain congressperson recently installed whose perspective is truly ludicrous and absurd, and we all know that. And yet, because it pulls people in to watch the news and to stay with the news through the commercials, it becomes something that media loves, and it becomes something that the loudest person, we used to be, there's always a place for everyone to speak, right? But if we think about Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park in London, there was a place where people who were just batshit crazy could have their ideas of what is and is not. And they would stand on a box and they could speak to whoever was there to listen. Well, that box is now amplified through social media and through media, where the loudest or most ridiculous notion of what is true or what is a fact is what will get coverage and what will get all the clickbait kind of coverage. And that's just silliness. We have to we have to figure this out. We have to figure out where and how social media impact the difference between entertainment and hard news, the difference between reality and fact and alternate reality and fact. And actually, having referenced London, I kept thinking of a famous influencer of his time. I don't consider myself an influencer at all. I'm happy to report, but I'm thinking of the quote at the beginning of Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. And so I actually, if you don't mind, I'll read it.
Please, yes.
A little bit of literature, and this is my actual monitor over here, so I'm reading off of my monitor. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness, it was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. And that, I think, is where we find ourselves this past year of lockdown, ending that year with the discovery and the now widespread use of the various vaccines that are available here in the US and now rolling out worldwide. But I think of this time period, if we can just talk about 2020, and then we can get beyond that into where we are now that we have vaccines, now that we have access to vaccines, and there's a little glimmer of hope. There's a little bit of the darkness before the light. This is this incredible transformational and transitional period that we've been moving through. It's kind of like when you're traveling from one great city to another great city and you're on a plane. I used to always collect and keep my plane tickets because it's proof of being in a place that isn't a place. It's not, you're nowhere, but you're in between two places. And I think that's what 2020 and lockdown, the first year of lockdown, has provided us with. We're in this in-between place that's marked at the end by the discovery and now the use of the vaccines that are available. Starting with, of course, the horrible announcement that COVID-19 was spreading very quickly worldwide. And in this giant reset that we find ourselves in, not only do we have to face ourselves and our own demons, we have to look at our family dynamic, actual family. We have to look at the dynamic that we have with our friends and our close circle of people, our further circle of people, with those that we work with, or those that we know casually, whether it's the guy at the market who greeted me having been gone from New York. I'm in New York right now for a year. The guy was like, "Are you okay? Where have you been? How are you?" I don't even know his name. He doesn't know my name, I don't think. But I'm the guy that buys that tempeh that they always keep stocked, and the natto that they always keep stocked because I like the taste of it. There's a certain mustard that they keep stocked, I think, because my boyfriend and I really like that mustard. We're addressing our relationship to the very closest people, the people that we know kind of casually in our communities, and then the broader community of a national community, let's say, and then even more importantly, with COVID-19 and with what we've discovered about this terrible virus, the community of humanity And this is global. This is not, there's nowhere to escape to. There's nowhere, no matter who I am, no matter how much money I may have, no matter whether I own my own island, and I'm thinking of now of, that's actually Marlon Brando behind me. He owned an island at one point. That's his life mask next to, that's William Blake.
Oh, wow.
Life Mask by Patti Smith. And then that's Marlon Brando, Life Mask by Douglas Copeland. Both beautiful sculptures that I.
And all full circle too, because 3 years ago, around this time, or sorry, 2 years ago, I was with you and Patti Smith in New York.
Yes,
so it's all come full circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think you just bring up such an important point in that if you wanted to see it, we are being reminded, and you've heard me say this, I say this a lot, that we are all first citizens of this planet. And you know, how we've sort of coped or come together or like you said, just dealt with these different dynamics, these different relationships, has been different for a lot of people and traumatizing in a lot of ways and beautiful in a lot of ways and difficult in, I feel like, all the ways, you know. But, you know, I actually kind of brings us perfectly to the next thing I wanted to talk to you about. And it's been discussed a bit more than it was at the beginning. It's something that I feel like as a country in the United States, we haven't done a great job even before COVID, and that's mental health. And this has been really difficult for so many people, for kids who can't be in their classrooms, for adults who have been without work or just not able to go into work, or I know this sounds so silly and it almost sounds trite, but like hugs. My poor husband has gotten more hugs than he ever has in his life because like he's the only person I've been able to hug, you know, and but these things are so real. And we're going to drop some resources into the chat and the comment box. But I would love for you to just talk about some of the ways you've been coping yourself, or even interesting ways that you've seen or heard others have been sort of navigating this time.
I mean, I can't imagine what it is to be a 13 or 14-year-old right now and be coming into pubescence or prepubescent or coming like this very important shift in life, moving from being a child to being a young adult, and having to do so under lockdown, having to, rather than to kind of escape and the routine of going to school and leaving the house and getting away from your family and your parents in that important time, and having these groups of people that you meet and that you learn, you know, basic social skills from, which already is an issue and a concern with the advent of digital technology, and the community that is created online has grown exponentially since lockdown, and we all know that there are very, very good and very bad things about that. Distribution itself, whether we're talking about necessary goods, medical goods, groceries, baby diapers, or the distribution of information, everything has shifted and changed with what we now are facing. So to be 13 or 14, I can't imagine. To be a parent, I'm so glad I don't have children, but I've had my goddaughters and my godsons to talk to and to kind of find out their perspective on this. And again, you know, where I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a therapist. I'm not, but in terms of mental health, you know, I've had to be alone with myself a lot in this past year, and that's been very difficult for me. I'm a very social animal, and I'm used to making lunch for myself, vegan, wonderful, healthy meals at home, and then going out to a restaurant to close my day, and eating out with friends and having that shared experience of being in a public space with other people who you know and who you don't know. And that shuts my brain down and allows me to escape my own kind of mental capacities and incapacities, I guess. It allows me to get out of a work mode and out of a kind of what a dear friend of mine who was a yoga instructor would call monkey brain.
Yeah.
And it allows me to experience the world as a social animal. I haven't had that this year. I've been very, very solitary for a big part of the year, and I've had serious mental health issues because of that. I've had to face things about myself that are not easy to face. I think I'm doing okay now. I feel like I've kind of come full circle on many things, but I find myself now alone, and I'll be alone for the next several months. The past year, I was in very close contact with people who I found myself in a caregiver position, and the necessity of my being there and present for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week was absolutely necessary. And so that has, of course, very good aspects and very difficult and not good aspects. So that situation, I'm happy to say, without saying too much, has changed. It had nothing to do with COVID-19, but that situation has changed for the better. And so you know what I'm talking about. I don't want to say it quickly, but things are all good and looking much, much better now.
That's so wonderful to hear.
I found myself in a caregiver position for the bigger part of last year.
Yeah.
I lost friends to COVID. I lost friends during COVID who did not die of COVID-19. Just last week, I attended a Zoom memorial for the first friend, a very, very dear friend, and someone for whom I hold in the highest regard, a Zoom memorial for him to honor the first year of his passing. These are not easy things, and they're certainly not easy things to do when you're confined by a situation that disallows you from leaving your home or safely leaving, or as you said, hugging someone who you just desperately need or want a hug from.
Yeah. No, I just really appreciate you sharing so much. And it's so easy to feel like we're on an island kind of dealing and coping alone. And the truth is sometimes we are, but spiritually and energetically and all of those kinds of things, I think it's good to be reminded that we are connected and we aren't exactly alone. So thank you so much for sharing and for connecting with all of us in that way. It's so important.
Of course.
And so appreciated.
I'm really pleased to announce that I've been vaccinated, and I'm fully, I'm 2 weeks past, I'm well past 2 weeks past my second vaccination. So I feel as protected as I can be right now. I am, of course, and this is something that just irritates me so much. It's particularly difficult in New York, which is a very populous city. People not wearing masks in public. It's really alarming to me and upsetting. It feels like the most easy and simple gesture to make towards, it's just common courtesy at this point, really, whether vaccinated or not. You just don't know the people that you're walking by, the people that are sat around you, whether it's in a waiting room or in the grocery store or just on the street. You don't know their situation. You don't know what they're dealing with their own health or within their family situation. You don't know their job. You don't know if it's important that they are as cautious as they need to be. And so the very simple act of wearing a mask comes to me as a common courtesy until we get globally, nationally certainly, but globally to a point of where we either reach some version of herd immunity or all these terms that we now, I didn't even know how to pronounce the term epidemiologist. And as I jokingly earlier, I said we all became these kind of like junior experts on viral loads and what are the sticky out things called that come out of the COVID-19 virus? And, we all think we have the answer. None of us really have the answer.
Well, and that's the thing, is we're still learning. We're still learning so much. And actually, you bring up a perfect segue to something else I want to ask you about. We launched at March for Science a show called Let's Get Vaccinated, and it's really meant to help boost vaccine confidence and empower allies and advocates and friends with tools and techniques to really be able to talk about getting vaccinated with loved ones who might be hesitant. And I shared with you, I'm fully vaccinated, and I had my own hesitancy, and I've never had hesitancy around vaccines, but it all happened so fast, and there's still so much we're learning. And, so I can appreciate where that comes from. We can all appreciate from a justice perspective where that hesitancy comes from. And not only the history of it, but the realities, the current realities, what happens today with healthcare and inequity. And so we can appreciate these things, and these conversations are so important. So I'd love for you to just share with us, you don't have to share any names, of course, but is there anybody in your life who was initially hesitant about getting the vaccine, but ultimately got vaccinated, and what helped convince that person to take that step?
I'll try to get around to that. Something you said earlier reminded me. Before the vaccine was available, my mother asked me if I would get the flu vaccine, the flu shot. I've never gotten it before because I don't get sick. I'm very, very lucky in that when people pre-COVID, that's another thing. I mean, I hate to be insulting to anyone who loves Jesus Christ or to Jesus Christ himself, but the term BC will never be the same. I mean, now BC is before COVID.
Right, totally.
There's a before and an after, and that's that. So we have a new BC.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jesus, and thank you. You are still in our hearts. I keep reading these incredibly uplifting stories of a young man, I think he was 19 years old, I believe on the West Coast, who realized that his grandparent, who was elderly and had comorbidities, couldn't find her way through the online process of finding a way to get a vaccination. And so he helped her in realizing that his grandmother was having so much trouble. He decided to reach out to the elderly community around him and to help older people get vaccines and get what's it called? It's
to sign up and an appointment.
Appointments for vaccines. This kid had like at the age of 19, whatever, he's just very good on a computer, and people in their 70s and 80s maybe aren't as good, or they get frustrated. He was able to help like 500 people, and this is so incredible. When I was in lockdown for the year of 2020, I was in Georgia, the state of Georgia, which for political reasons has been a little bit of a controversy for sure.
Yeah.
The governor, at this point should just resign. He's just horrid. But there is an enormous Black community in Georgia who felt very empowered by the voting that happened that altered the Senate race and helped turn the state blue against the Trump administration, and created a majority in the Senate. So that's all very important and great, but have immense concern about historically vaccines, and for good reason. And so there are all these incredible activists in Georgia who are working to help people within the Black community particularly, but I think also outside of that, to help people understand this is something that we all need, and this is something that is impacting this community much worse than it is other communities. And so the importance of that is something that they're spotlighting. And I feel so optimistic that people just took it upon themselves, really, to say, all right, this is my focus, this is what I do, but I'm just going to step into here. I'm going to step into these shoes for a minute and help my community to understand the importance of this vaccine, the importance of all of us getting it, and to say, yes, there are horrible historic precedents to why a particular community, the Black community in America particularly, would not want to involve themselves with anything having to do with a vaccine. And yet, these people are helping to convince people that it's something that needs to happen. To answer your question earlier, I'm not vaccinated. You are. I know that because we're friends. My family, by and large, are all vaccinated. There was one member of my family who was quite concerned about it and felt that their that we just did not want to get vaccinated. That's that. We'll keep it simple. A lot of talk about it and a lot of looking at the facts. Let's get FACTSinated. It's such a great term. Thank you for that, March for Science. Convinced this person that it was the thing to do. If not for them, for everyone else. My mother convinced me pre-vaccine to get the flu shot. I never got it before. I never needed it before. But what my mom said was, you're not getting it for you. You're getting it for me. I'm older than you by 20 odd years, by 22 years, 24 years. I need for you to get this. And so I capitulated and I went and got the vaccine. I don't like getting vaccines, but I did it. When the COVID vaccine came along, I was more than happy to roll my sleeve up and stand online. And that's exactly what I did. And I'm encouraging everyone in my life and everyone listening here to please get vaccinated and to please try to help convince the people in your life who are afraid for whatever reason or who are holding back for whatever reason, the importance of all of us, of each of us, allowing the vaccine into our lives, into our arms, so that we can get past this.
Yes, it's such a good reminder. We can't take any of these conversations for granted, and with love and grace and patience and understanding and transparency and honesty. I mean, when I had the second shot, I was laid out. I mean, it knocked me down, and I would do it 100 times out of 100 for all of the reasons you just said. So thank you so much. I want to segue into something a little bit different here. Some people may not know this about you, but you're an amazing visual artist. And actually, I'm going to lean over here. This was truly not intentional, but I have your new book because you sent it to me.
That's the old book.
Oh, this is the old
Rania,
one?
hold on.
Oh my God.
This is the new one.
Oh my gosh.
I sent you, there's exactly one copy in New York City, and it's mine.
Oh, okay. So this is the old one. Michael has the new one. And but the point is, you're an amazing visual artist. And of course, as well as a vocal artist. And you have released this new series. Can you talk a little bit about your process and what art means to you, especially during this time, and where people can find your work? So not your new book, obviously, but at least your old book.
Yeah, but this actually, it's a nice segue. I hope I'm not going on for too long, but the book that you have is called, if you can hold it up, it's called Our Interference Times. And what I made that book about was, I spoke earlier about the advent of digital technology and how it's changed so many things. Well, one of the things I think it's changed is the way we see things, and just how we look at the world around us through a digital lens versus an analog lens. That's what that book is about, and what it references with the title is the interference of the kind of white noise where people who knew analog imagery before computers were an everyday common thing, and before we all had devices that we reference on a daily or hourly or minute by minute basis, have a very different take on visual imagery than people 14, 15, 20 years old for whom everything has been backlit their whole life. And the rest of it, like books, are kind of like this old thing that grandma used to look at. Magazines are a thing of the past, etc. Our Interference Times talks about that, but it spoke about it. That book came out before COVID. This book, the new one, I started before lockdown as a book of portraits. And what happened during lockdown was I was forced, if I was going to continue creating a book about portraits, I was forced to have to figure out how I can portray people without being in the same room with them with a camera. I couldn't travel to the places I wanted to go to take pictures of the people I wanted to take pictures of. And so I started with, I had taken 6 or 7, 8 maybe photo shoots to start the book. And Tilda Swinton, who's my cover star, was one of the first people that I photographed for the book. And there's a variety of other people who are in it. This is my goddaughter Charlotte, and this is the dancer Martha Williams. I was able to photograph them before lockdown, and then the whole thing went down. So this book is really about my year under lockdown and my attempt under duress, under artistic duress, that is, to try to create portraits without having access to people except through Zoom. And I realized very early on I didn't want to do a book of images where I was photographing people on computer screens or asking them to take selfies. So I arrived at a variety of different ways to quote unquote portray people. And this is my year of lockdown. This is my 2020.
That's amazing.
Thank
I
you
can't wait for it.
Well, yours is coming. The books are on the way from the warehouses in Tennessee, I believe. Distribution is a bit slow because there are other more important things that are being distributed right now, like vaccines. And so distribution is a little slow, but as soon as they arrive, and I believe they're coming this week, there will be one in the mail for you as a gift.
Oh, you're amazing. So when and where can folks find it if they want this book, understanding that, you know, I'm special and I get mine in the mail, but everybody else.
It's available by pre-order now, and you can just punch in my name and the word photo book, and you'll find the book. It has no title. It just says Michael Stipe on it, and you'll recognize the cover. But I think actually both books are available through Damiani, which is the publisher in Bologna, Italy. They're incredible. They've had a very rough year in Italy as well. But you can just punch in Michael Stipe photo book, and it'll take you to somewhere where you can pre-order. So it should be available now.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. What a happy coincidence. I really thought I had gotten the new one, but this is even better conversation. So thank you for sharing that with us, and just for spending time with us and really diving deep with us on a very personal front. I know it's not always easy, but your willingness to share is absolutely, it's so spectacular and special, and I really appreciate you, as always, for spending any time. And thank you everyone out there for tuning in. Before we say goodbye, I have a very quick announcement. March for Science is hosting its inaugural Let's Get FACTSinated training next week for advocates who want to join us on this movement to end the pandemic as quickly as possible by boosting vaccine confidence in your own communities and within your own networks. Just like we talked about, these conversations are so important. And we hope everyone tuning in will register using the form that our dear Izzy, who makes us, keeps us on track and makes sure I don't screw things up, she's dropping it in the chat box. So please join us, become a vaccine booster. And really, it's going to take every one of us to come out on the other side of this. Mm-hmm. So again, thank you, Michael. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Until next time.
Thank you, Rania. Thank you, March for Science.